Very good morning and welcome to our Thursday interview. This morning we are favored to have with us Professor Kivutha Kibwana, who is the governor for Makueni County. But as we know, Professor Kibwana has been involved in a lot of things. In the previous government, he was a minister, and he has been involved in the quest for a new constitution and better government, or governance in this country. So this morning we'll traverse across from Makueni to the constitution and the forthcoming referendum. Prof, yes. I'm going to take you to the river.
To the river? Is it baptism?
You know, we cross a lot of political issues.
Yes.
But first, let's start with Makueni. You know, you going to run in Makueni and becoming governor was not expected, given where you've come from as a professor of law, dean of the faculty of law, and serving in the national government as a minister, actually at Lands and a couple of other places. How does it feel, and how did you elect to go for what I would call a low seat of governor, Makueni, from the national profile that we knew you to have?
That's a very interesting question, because a lot of the people who are governors are high flyers. I'm not saying I'm one, but
the profiles were not low.
You know, people came from the corporate sector, people came from universities, people came from the public sector, because they thought that now we were taking the government to the grassroots, where if you really do a good job, you can be part of changing the people's lives in a meaningful way. And I think that was really the attraction, that areas which had not enjoyed significant development, now with the kind of money we thought was going to come through, and also the organization, the focus, it was possible to change people's lives in a major way. And if we did that in 47 sites, then that would translate into the entire country, you know, changing for the better. And therefore, for many of us, and including myself, it was a question of let's do service where it really matters.
Right. So the 1 year you have not missed the national stage which you previously occupied by being consigned to Makueni, because Makueni is not one of those, if I may use that without sounding derogatory, frontline places in this country of visibility, you know, being a rural county and so forth, sort of denies you the national stage where do you miss anything?
I don't really miss playing on the national scene as such, because I think if you do a county well, it can also profile you nationally. And therefore, these experiments have the potential of also getting limelight at the national level, and one can develop a model for how, indeed, even the rest of the country should perhaps conduct business. Because there's so much work in the county, you don't really have time to think about what happens in Nairobi. But though, through the Council of Governors, we interact a lot at the national level. So we keep on meeting, we meet national officials, we come to national offices. But in terms of the politics at the national level, mostly we just follow what is happening. But as of now,
you don't engage in it.
We don't really engage that much.
How come you haven't sought any position within the Council of Governors?
Again, for the same reason, I used to be chair of the legal committee, but I asked Governor Munya if he could occupy that position, because again, I think in terms of our own development as a country, we really perhaps have not gotten right the paradigm of how do you do grassroots development, so that you actually involve the people in their own development. Most of the times, the government just went to these places and did things for people, and a lot of things were done very expensive, but they didn't they didn't really become a feature of the life of the people. So I think if one wants to do a good job, it is very, very, very consuming. You require to invest a lot of time, and therefore I decided that I just want to focus in this kind of experiment.
When you were in Kibaki's government as a minister, and when you lost elections, you were employed by the government, the Kibaki government, to stay there advising. I thought it was very strange, and many people thought so, that when you went to that rally at September, because having been in government, in both times as a politician and as a civil servant. It was interesting to see you in that rally, the Sabasaba rally the other day.
Well, I think I have a history of really wanting the constitution to work. First of all, for us to have a constitution, and then the constitution to work. And so attending the Machakos Code rally and the Sabasaba rally, it's not just a question of nostalgia. It was a question of is our constitution being implemented properly? Because it is one thing to have a constitution. The real job is making sure that it is implemented. You don't have amendments from Parliament which appear to contradict it. There is fidelity to it. So I thought it was good to come to Sabasaba so that I could be part of a process of saying, you know, let's do our constitution right.
But that's not what they're saying. They want to make a referendum to amend the constitution.
Well,
that's the message.
It depends. It depends in terms of what do you want to amend. There are certain things that if you amend, it is right. There are other things you could suggest to amend and it would not be right. For example, at some stage, the governors wanted more money to the counties, like to get about 40% to the counties. Now, that's a good amendment, in my view. But there are certain other amendments which I would imagine, as discussions go on, people can consider that they may not be really necessary. Because under normal circumstances, when a constitution is passed, it is given time so that people can see what difficulties it may have. That has happened in Namibia, in Ghana, in Uganda, when they passed a first constitution.
So in your view, what is wrong with the implementation as we speak now? What were you protesting?
Not really protesting. I mean, for me, it was not a question of protesting. It was a question of affirming that we need to get the constitution implemented for real. There are many things that are happening, particularly through the agency of Parliament, both National Assembly and Senate. You get amendments to make senators do executive work, do development work, and this is in contradiction to the doctrine of separation of powers. You get laws about the police being changed so that the kind of oversight that was intended for the commission is being diluted. So when you see changes of that kind, those are not good changes, particularly for an infant constitution. So I think one has really to be part of passing the message that any time we want to consider changes of ordinary law which impact on the constitution, there should be more consensus developed about them so that you don't have a contradiction where we have to keep on going to court to challenge legislation.
But that's why the Supreme Court is there. If Parliament passes those laws, like you were being told the other day, somebody will go to court and challenge them. They'll be nullified.
But
so
you see,
making an administration in Buhuru Park or whatever.
But you see, that's a lot of wasting of time when we pass things that don't make sense, and then we say, okay, we have the Supreme Court. Of course, the Supreme Court will use its time. First of all, the Parliament is using time to pass laws which may not be correct, and then you have to again use the Supreme Court to change them. But if there is a dialogue about these things, then it is possible to say, this is the problem. How do you cure that problem? And then we don't therefore pass laws which will be attacked, because that kind of history of passing laws which don't, which are not, if I can say, proper, that history brings conflict instead of cohesion, consensus.
Let me, the general question, of course, is against this background of whether to amend the constitution at all, a referendum or through Parliament. Initiatives already underway within Parliament through the code initiatives of the referendum. And there is the argument that, and you've just said it, people give time to the constitution to see whether it works and identify the loopholes in it. Do you think we need to be thinking about amending the constitution at all?
I think for me, one would have to look at very, very few places. Like one place that I'm sure about is I have seen that even despite the problems that we have in the counties, if more money goes to the counties, I can see that money making a lot of sense, helping people. So I would myself say that the minimum should be raised from 15%, towards 40%. That I would say that would be...
Which is one of the code's proposals,
Which
right?
is one of, and it was actually earlier proposal of the Council of Governors.
Right.
So that is a good change. I would have to look at all the other changes for me to be persuaded.
But even that one, considering the way the governors themselves, the county assemblies have spent the money, the 15% that was given, and the amount of it which was not even spent anyway. If you tell me you want more money to them, I say no.
No, but of course, when you say that some of the money was not spent, because that's a popular argument.
That's what the General said.
Most of the money has been committed in terms of there are projects which are ongoing. We are waiting for the completion, like in Makueni. We were told that we have like 1.3 billion which has not been spent. But the reality of the matter is, for example, we have a fruit processing plant for mangoes, for oranges, which is about 70 million. We have started all that process, buildings are ongoing. So you cannot pay the people before, of course, they complete. So all that money for us, particularly the executive wing, is committed and projects are ongoing. We are some have been finalized. So there isn't money which is there. And of course, that money is in the county revenue fund. It has not gone to the national treasury because county money never goes back to the national treasury. But of course, our absorption capacity as new counties, because of their newness and the structures that they have and so on, one must also be honest to say that that's work in progress in terms of making them more effective. But the saving grace is when the money lands there, the reality is a lot of it, particularly the development money, is used well to the advantage of people, and that excites me.
I would, Prof, I would call you a highbrow politician, somebody who is, really professional up there. The governors seem to be having challenges with the representation that they find they're presented with at the county assemblies, and that governors are being compelled to do things which they don't think are right, but intimidation. How is it working for you in Makueni?
It is not.
Here, governors are under siege. You're granting
kind of
trips.
people you're dealing with, being a professor.
Yes.
And you're dealing with the MCAs, which
Exactly.
some of them are hardly from 4.
Yeah.
So how are you managing this? And are you, is the relationship working in the devolution system?
I keep on saying, and sometimes people can think it's a funny thing to say. The real challenge of devolution is not from Nairobi. It is actually on the ground, because there was this perception that when this money came from Nairobi, the local elite had now lagis. They had now a lot of money to partake. And, you get people, they come to the office, they say they want tenders, and you tell them that I'm not the one who, there's a committee, there's a procurement committee, they're saying you're the governor. You see people coming and telling you that, employ my, this and that. You say I'm not the County Public Service Commission. So the thinking of the governor is now the president, and therefore they can simply say this should be done, and it is done. That's a major problem. And when you don't kind of cooperate, like as a governor, to be the chief, I will not say thief, to be the chief purveyor of lagis.
Yes. Dispensing goodies.
Yes, goodies.
Yes.
People wonder, if you don't seem to also enjoy those contracts, and you are living on your salary. So then the knowledge of what the system is, what should be done. Like now, in my budget, I was told that we shouldn't do civic education because it's not really development. So sometimes when, you try to say that the MCAs should do oversight, legislation, representation, and the real execution of development activities, that is a preserve of the ministers and so on, they say, that's not correct. Yeah. And in actual fact, we also have problems with our MPs, because the paradigm before has been you are elected to deliver development. So if this MCA if the senator, if they are not seen to be saying that this is the bridge, and this is the school, and this is the health dispensary, in the next election,
what do they sell?
What do they sell? So that's a major problem. I think that needs to be discussed and resolved.
What is it? The problem is awareness of the different distinct roles between MCA, governor, MP, senator, and all this. That mixed matrix is not well understood by the public, right?
As well as even by ourselves as the officials, because some of them sometimes genuinely believe that they should be doing things that they are not supposed to do. And that creates a lot of problems, because they will go and say that, you know, I'm doing this road, I'm doing that, and so on and so forth. But then, because that's not their role and they don't, you know, can't do it. So when like ministers come to do it and so on,
they want to be involved in it.
They want to be involved in it, and they want to say things that may not be technically correct.
Yes.
So I think that dialogue is something that requires to be, we all require to be innate. What do we do?
So what needs to be done? And from the perspective of the Council of Governors, because that is a real challenge then. What is being done from your perspective as governors to interact, or get people to appreciate those roles and to coexist, each performing the mandate?
I think to some extent, if as a governor you don't want to involve all these other players in terms of now that, if I can call it, hard development, whatever the law says, there is a problem. So I think there has to be like a transition period when we find a formula for all participating in this, you know, hard development. Otherwise, the MPs will fight you, the MCAs will fight you, the senators will fight you.
You have been a recipient of some of those fights. There was one time you were reported to have cried.
Not cried.
And threatened to go to resign. What was the circumstance?
The circumstance was we had a budget of about 5 billion, slightly over 5 billion, 5.2 billion. And my MCAs wanted over 1 billion for themselves. And
to do what with it?
You know, for their work.
Constituency development.
Not even that time. They didn't even have ward development fund. Even that time, they didn't have, you know, for facilitating them in terms of legislation, in terms of representation, in terms of oversight, to go, you know, abroad and, you know, check what's happening there, to go in the county and see development things which are happening and so on. And I said no way, because we have come here to really now use resources as effectively as we can for the development of the many. And there was a standoff actually for 4 to 5 months until our budget was one of the last budgets to be approved by the controller of budget.
Yes.
So that was the context.
So is it resolved?
It was resolved. There was a lot of diplomacy, because we actually...
You acceded to their demands?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
So is it resolved?
We went to the controller of the budget, who was now mediating on the behalf of us. We involved even our elders in Makueni. We involved the professionals in Makueni. We involved the religious leaders in Makueni, so that there was more public participation, so to speak, of that process. And finally, I think they realized that I was not going to budge. And I was saying to myself, I don't have to be governor. If it means that I will allow so much money to go to them, and indeed even what we agreed later, which was about 570 for them, up to now they have not finished using it. They have not finished using it because it was just too much. Even when they, you know, towards the end of the budget, they were going abroad a lot. Still, the money was too much.
Is there any control that you can have as a county governor over the county assembly's decisions, for example, for MCS to visit places or benchmarking? Who is sending them? Is it the governor?
No.
Or are they sending themselves out there on their own resolutions?
No, they are sending themselves because they, after we agreed on what the budget was, the 570 million went to their account, because they say they're independent, like Parliament. They can't be controlled by the executive. Therefore, they make decisions about, you know, where to go, the speaker, the clerk, and the ones who are heading committees. So in a way, that kind of independence makes it very, even it's not easy to look at, although the Minister for Finance is supposed to look at the accounts. They keep on saying that, we are okay if you look at this and
the procurement is correct. It has been approved by the county assembly. So it's
so
an
there's a
independent
problem.
decision. So you can't stop them.
Apart from making those tours, what else do they do with the money?
They make those tours. Of course, the money is supposed to, of course, pay their salaries, their allowances, because there are many statutory allowances. Then they go around in the county for oversight purposes. They have also public hearings. So, in actual fact, it would be interesting to look at the expenditures vis-a-vis how much money has been used into legislation. Very little, because most of the assemblies have not done the requisite legislation. Like we have taken to our assembly legislation about sand harvesting, because that's a problem. Legislation about alcohol, that's a problem. Also, many of our towns did not have titles, so we also took legislation to help identify who owns what, so that can be streamlined. So we take legislation, but that's not like a priority for them, and unfortunately that is the core business.
That's the business.
That is the core business. By now, most of us have not passed legislation to accord to our functions. So we are doing a lot of the things ad hoc, actually customizing national laws to do what we must do. But the first year, by the end of the second year, all these counties require now to have, all those pieces of legislation which are required for us to implement Schedule 4 functions. Otherwise, it will be, we will be improvising.
So how do you tax? If you have knowledge,
the tax we have the finance. We have the finance act, which is a yearly thing. But you see, if for example we are responsible for county roads, there should be something about that. If we are responsible for agriculture, there are things about agriculture, crop, all that, we should have that. Health, the same. Because every area of our area we implement, it should have a policy and it should have law. Of course, in accord with national policy and laws. But you see, for you now to bring people away from going abroad, from just touring the county, going to Mombasa and all that, so that you tell them that is peripheral. We need to do our core mandate. And indeed, it's not also easy because of expertise and so on in the counties. But I think the transitional authority, one thing that it didn't do well was to help all these counties have a framework for their structures and for their processes. So each one of them is improvising on its own. And we don't have like a reasonably common system of infrastructure, of institutional infrastructure, processes, procedures. And I think that is also one of the problems of the unfolding of our devolution.
Let's now get down to Makueni. People of Makueni are very happy to see you here. And
Yes.
of course, they must be having a lot of questions which they're sending in here.
That's right.
But first, before we even go to the feedback here, there is the dispute that has arisen about the 1.3 billion and allegations that this money has not been spent. What is the idea? What is the issue here?
In actual fact, all that money except 40 million is already committed. And what we did, especially as the executive, after the first 4 or 5 months where we were not really working because we were still quarreling about the budget up to November, and when now we started doing our projects, we also add a supplementary where, because we had not gone abroad as the executive, the only time I went abroad was Ford Foundation. Some governors went abroad. So because we had really not focused on that, because we don't believe you should go abroad unless you really have investors you are going to meet or partners, or there are real things that you are going to see which will be implemented. Right. So all that money, including some of the travel money and subsistence, we now again converted it into development projects. And now the only money now which we would freshly do a supplementary is about 40 million from the executive.
Right.
So all that money is committed. People are finishing their work.
Why is that dispute? And then you posted this, you made a post online saying you're going to resign. If
it's true.
If
it is true that there's money going to the treasury. Because even when the minister wrote in the newspaper the last tranche to the counties, it was clear. He said, under section 109 subsection 8 of the Public Finance Management Act, the moment money comes from the treasury to the counties, it never goes back.
It belongs to the counties, so it can roll over.
But when every year ends, you have to stop. And then you have to do another supplementary. Of your money.
To use that money.
Tell us about Konza City. Is it going on? Is it in Machako? Is it Makueni? What's the situation?
Of course, first it is in Kenya. But it is in Makueni County because a place must be somewhere. It is in Makueni County, 1992 Districts and Provinces Act. That is very, very clear. Of course, there was an intention to change the boundary. And there were some hearings through the provincial administration after 1992, up to 1996. But those did not, they were not completed. And therefore, even for places where boundaries had been changed, like districts which had been created after 1992, like Mwingi, they never became counties because the cut-off date was 1992. So we actually get amazed when, whether it is in the Ministry of Lands or whether it is who, people saying that this thing is in...
But haven't you had discussions? Because the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Charity Ngil, who is from that same area, has said Konza is in Machakos.
She's wrong. She's wrong.
You put out adverts even to clarify the position. So has it been sorted out? Where is Konza officially?
Officially
leave alone
not.
Your position, Mutua's position, and the Cabinet Secretary's
She
position.
promised us even we would come and walk the boundary, which didn't happen. During the time that she was going to do that, it didn't happen.
Right.
The authority, which is now the interim authority, we talked to them about this thing. We showed all the maps and so on. So sometimes we are not sure whether there is somebody who wants to frustrate a Vision 2030 project. Because even in the budget now, there's about like 400 million to the budget, the new budget.
Yes.
And yet, in Makueni, that is one of the, not even in Makueni, in the country, that is really one of the biggest projects, like for youth who are, in IT and so on. That's really a major thing. And again, we are making the point of even development of if in these regions there was like a major thing. Major investment. We are happy with the railway, which is passing through Makueni. A lot of the railway, 177 kilometers, is passing through Makueni from the 485. We are happy with that. Thwake Dam, there is a major problem because Tarda started it without the compulsory acquisition. We were told that the people had agreed, but for such a mammoth thing, you must have compulsory acquisition so that the people who are there are helped to go somewhere else.
Yeah, that was not done. They have not been compensated.
No, not compensated.
Has the acquisition commenced?
There wasn't compulsory acquisition like in Konza, like for the standard gauge railway.
Yes.
It was said that the people had agreed, and that was very interesting. So we were saying that the law needs to be followed properly, so that there is compulsory acquisition of that land, so that the people don't lay any claims or there are no problems.
So the situation now is people have agreed. Is the dam, the lake, going to acquire some of their land? Or not?
It is going to acquire their land without following the proper procedures, because for land which is private, for which the government wants to do something, there is usually the land compensation route. But here it was like they were just willingly, selling it to the...
What is the difficulty with that? If the government willingly bought land from people and they sold it, they lost ownership to the government through compensation. However, not through the compulsory acquisition procedure, but they are no longer making claim to that land. What is the problem?
Because I can refuse to sell. I can say I don't want. If there isn't a law which is saying, there isn't a process which is telling...
sold?
No, they haven't.
There are those who haven't sold.
The issue is all of them haven't
yet. Oh, all of them haven't.
All of them haven't. It's now the procedure is starting. So if somebody says, okay, if you are just asking me to sell to you, I don't want.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if it's compulsory acquisition, they must sell. And also, in terms of compulsory acquisition, there's usually a 15% on top of the regular price.
Yes, yes.
Because
Premium.
Premium.
Okay, let me ask, how significant is the lake? Does the government want it, Makueni government? You want it in place or you don't want it?
Yesterday. We want it yesterday.
How significant is it to the development?
It is significant. Of course, it will supply water to Konza city. It will also supply water to Watertown, the environs. There will be some money there also for sewage things to water, to Kadonzo, and to the neighboring towns. One of the problems that we had was it was downscaled so that it is not in the first phase involving irrigation agriculture. In actual fact, initially, that was its most attractive aspect of helping us to do irrigation agriculture. But that has been downscaled so that now it is water primarily for Konza and also doing electricity. So we really, that's a big thing. We need Konza, that's a big thing.
What is happening at Konza? Is there any activity going on there?
Yeah, a bit of balls are being sunk.
Okay.
Not much.
It looks like this government has abandoned Konza.
I hope not. Because
there have been complaints, that have been raised that Konza is no longer getting the priority it got in the last government. The other newer projects are getting more funding and more attention, and Konza has slowed down.
It looks like Machakos City is taking over from Konza.
Well, Machakos is not a government project, but what do you say about that allegation or complaint that it's not getting sufficient push as did last year?
It is true, it is not getting a sufficient push, and we would like that to happen. We would like really the national government and us to work on that project because it's a national project, but situated in a particular place. We would like to be of assistance.
But a couple of weeks ago, 4 weeks or so, the CEO of that Konza city signed a deal with Tetra to manage and market and seek for investment into Konza, isn't it?
That is true. That went through.
But
the problem is we now look at the budget to see how much money
is going
towards that. Because if not much money goes into the Konza,
well, maybe the project where it is, the phase at which it is, doesn't need more budget. It needs investors.
It needs, because you have to do the infrastructure so that the investors are able now to say yes.
So there's nothing. So far, actually, what is on the ground?
Including an airport.
What has gone on? What is on the ground by your assessment, and what needs to be done?
It is a very rudimentary stage, more or less where President Kibaki left it. Apart from the water now, the drilling. Actually, it is just the drilling.
Okay.
Not much else.
All right. A lot of feedback coming in from people of Makueni. Obviously, they're happy to see the governor here. Some saying congratulations. You're doing a great job. But there are also lots of complaints here about. They say, Prof, as a person of such learning and experience, we expect to see a lot of change on the ground. One, Wote County, they say, is a shabby town, nothing working, it has not changed. I'm sure they're comparing it with the neighbor there, Machakos, which is kicking with cameras, CCTV, and so on, and Wote is laid back there. What do you have to say about the state of Wote?
Okay, I don't know when some of those went to Wote recently, because we are initiating street lighting in Wote. For a long time, Wote has had a very poor water system where, we draw water from Kaiti. We use donkeys. Now, we had a project of about 30 million where we are rehabilitating the water system from Kaiti so that now people don't have to use donkeys to draw water from the river. Yeah. We are beginning to do parkings because we didn't have parking slots.
Within the town.
Within the town itself. We are doing that. We are doing the planning of the town itself. So we are trying to modernize the town. And also we have a program of rehabilitating the roads, including the few roads that are tarmacked.
In fact, there are roads here which I'm going to ask you about. Somebody says roads from Machakos through Mumandu, Makongo to Wote, development ends at Kola Market, which is Machakos. The roads on your side are really pathetic. What are you doing about that?
Of course, those roads are Kera roads. They are of the national government. And the contractor was given the job, because we even launched that contract with Governor Mutua a while back. And they started from the Machakos side going up to Wote. And then within this year's budget again, there is also rehabilitation of the water to Makindu Road. One of the areas where people don't also understand is up to now, roads have never been devolved. The national government still has all the roads.
Yeah,
whatever
so
we do.
All these questions about roads, for example, places like Kakuswe, Bumbuni, Intangini, those roads are impassable. Those roads don't fall under the county government.
As of now, the national government has not ceded roads to us. So that whatever we do actually work which should be done by the national government. And we have been having this debate of what classes of roads should counties do. And we haven't concluded that debate. But having said that, we used about 50 million shillings to grade our roads. And some of them were in very, very pathetic states. So that was work. I remember at the heyday of that work, we had like about 15 graders, 17 actually, graders which were doing that kind of work. Unfortunately now, some of the roads in Boni, like Kima, Chambalasi, another road in Makueni, Mali, Ukia, they are in a current budget for tarmacking. But again, it's a question of negotiating so that if the roads are in that budget, they are done and they aren't kind of removed. This 2,000 scheme of kilometers of roads and later 10,000 kilometers.
2,000 kilometers of roads in Makueni?
Not in Makueni. That is now
countrywide.
Yes, for 1 year. For 1 year and some
those
of those.
Is any of those roads on the national plan of action?
That is
in
correct.
Makueni?
That is correct. Like a Mali Ukia, it is in the budget. Many roads in Boni. So there's a bit of that, but the issue is because sometimes some roads we have been promised they will be tarmacked, but eventually they are not.
Right.
So one has to kind of make sure that their eye is on the ball.
About Emali, does the governor know that part of Emali town was taken by Kajiado County, and what is he doing about it? What is that about?
I don't think so. I don't think Emali town is both Makueni and Kajiado, just like Sultana Mut, just like Simba. They are towns which are on the border, and they have an extension either ways. So I think that may not be completely correct.
Right. Generally, before we get out of Makueni, I know Mutegi wants to migrate to national politics again. What is for people Makueni watching, what is the grand plan? I mean, people are saying Kivuda is not visible, things here and there.
If you compare him with
and the problem is we have a neighbor who is very activist. So people look this side, they see Machakos. They look they see Makueni and say, why are these things not happening this side? So what do you have to tell the people Makueni who want to see change, who want to see goods, who want to see results?
Some of what we do, we don't maybe bring it too much in the limelight. The things that we do, and given also we are farther from Nairobi, and we don't have like media people on site in Makueni.
And visitors going to Machakos.
We don't have that like in Machakos or places which are.
You have John Kisu, my good friend.
But doesn't he whatever. Yes. So because of that, there are many things that we do. For example, I believe that in terms of health facilities, we probably are a leading county. Because since we came into position, we have opened over 40 health facilities where there was no medicine before. People are not getting medicines, and that is ongoing.
Somebody says actually people are not having medicine in hospitals as part of the content.
Well, I don't know whether
How is that? You are supplying the hospitals?
We are supplying.
They're being stocked?
And they are being stocked. We even supply medicines to faith-based institutions because those ones also help the people. The people don't pay much to those institutions. So I think that's a major thing, and the new things that we are doing in terms of making sure that the district hospitals have x-rays, have theatre. Most of these dispensaries and health facilities we open have maternity facilities. So we are doing very much in terms of, in terms of that. Recently, we started, as I said earlier, a fruit processing plant because we have a problem with our fruits, like our mangoes. They're some of the best in the world. They they don't get consumed. In terms of like our pre-primary school, we were one of the first people to employ about 900 people and to get that situation under control. So I think it is what kind of strategy people have for communication.
Yes.
Maybe our strategy for communication.
So you think there's a lot happening?
A lot
but
of stuff.
We're not shouting enough.
No, we don't shout. And we are first of all doing like also the systems.
Yes.
Because again, if you don't have the systems, like a lot of these first 5 years, I think counties that are lucky to establish systems, to establish a government, to establish human resource capacity, to also the accounting processes, possibly the relationship between the executive and the assembly, so that they are doing work together, including with the MPs and so on. I think the difficult work is done quietly.
You're supposed to employ a certain percentage of staff from outside the country.
Yes.
How successful have you been able to do that?
That is also a priority for us, because we know that we have to have 30%, or at least 30% outside the county, and preferably outside Ukambani, not just outside Makueni. Not to say that when we employ people from Machakos and Kitui, those are, and I think that we have done well in terms of that. And also in the previous, the majority of the people came from the national government. That was also very well balanced. So we are now doing an audit because of these recent issues of rationalization. And I think that will reveal we are doing fine.
You say that you would like the counties to get 40% and not 15%. What would you say you spend the money with? Because already, what you are lacking money to do what?
We are lacking money in Makueni to do big water, because and that is one of the things that now we are focusing in this particular budget. The first year we were rehabilitating existing water systems which were dysfunctional. Now we want to do big dams which have irrigation capacity, drip irrigation, and we have bought machinery, and we are in the process of buying machinery from this budget to do that. If we get more money, that money in Makueni would go to agriculture, and therefore provision of water for that agriculture.
So how much money actually? I mean, Makueni has quite some budget. In fact, you're right, you're addressing the water, because most of a lot of SMSs coming in say, water. Professor has to deal with water.
That's right.
And then two, handicraft. Somebody, Ben Zangi says, you have to talk about handicrafts, because that's a major source of income for Makueni, Ukambani generally. So water, how much money on the budget is going there, out of how much? And
actually, we wanted to do close to $1 billion for water. But we had also to, when the MCAs now, the issue of the car loans and the mortgages, that was the budget, because that was a big budget, where we had to get money for 240 for their loans. But
240 million went to the loans for mortgages and cars for the MCAs.
And cars. They contributed 10 million themselves, so 230 is from us, the executive, and that had to come from the water budget, because the health budget is big. But because, there were all the nurses and all the people, you have to pay their salaries. So we couldn't get money from there. So we had to go to the next high budget, which was water. But ideally, we should have minimum 1 billion to water.
So the priorities in terms of Makueni County are water?
Water, agriculture,
roads,
health,
infrastructure.
Big,
Okay. We're talking about the 40% now getting out of Makueni. First, before we get out of Makueni, the Senate Railway, there's a lot of promise that holds for Makueni, 172 kilometers of it in Makueni. How is the county planning to capitalize on that infrastructure to develop?
In the interim, that is when it is being built. We really hope that people in Makueni will get opportunities for employment, especially because a lot of casual employment will be needed. In actual fact, they say that they will need 30,000. There will be 30,000 jobs by the time they end the project. So there is a lot of employment. Then there are contracts, because many things are being supplied, sand and cement and all that. And a certain percentage is supposed to be done by people from where the thing is, passing through. So that's another benefit. Now, when it is true, we expect major stations like Mutitwande, like Kibwezi, Makindu, Emali, Sultana Mud, and other stations. And the design is such that in these stations, they will build complexes which even have supermarkets, which have, the towns will expand.
Right.
And because now our produce will be, like we have done a lot of horticulture, like French beans, but sometimes you can't really transport them quick enough to Nairobi so that they can go abroad. So that will also help us in terms of how we move particularly our produce.
Right.
So it holds a lot of promise, because even the towns now, like those main places where there will be stations, already land is almost doubling.
Right.
The price of land is almost doubling.
Has the acquisition of land by the government, the SGR, happened?
It is in the process. They have been identifying people will be whose land will be taken and for them to be compensated. But again, because the county government, the National Land Commission, Kenya Railways, have not been working, they have not been involving us very closely. So that is, we have met with them now, apart from the National Land Commission on this question, so that we can help them, so that everybody is compensated, and they are compensated before the start of the building, so that they can go and find alternative land.
Okay. Before we conclude, there's a question that comes in about that your support for the 40% of the budget to go to the counties. Somebody says, which Mutegi raise, how do you add people money who are already wasting or unable to spend it because they don't have absorption capacity?
Yeah, but I don't think they are unable to spend it, because as we have said, if you look at most of these counties, the money has been committed. It's only that the projects in this first year, when you are doing structures, when there is confusion, when there is whatever, you can't be expected in the first year of a new thing to move with lightning speed as you would like in the fifth year.
When you have systems in place.
When you have systems in place.
Now, sequel to that is then, why are we in a hurry? Why are we ambitious to get more money when we haven't tested our ability to use what we have and to what result? So that we say, with the same logic, let's wait for another 5 years. After the next session, then we can review whether we need more money.
But we have to ask ourselves, what does the national government do with the money? Like money, which used to go to those places, to districts.
Yes.
A lot of it was not used to do productive development projects.
Yes.
And now we are beginning to see some oases of development in those counties, which never happened in the 50 years. And not that we are really criticizing the national government as such, but it is only that
the national government, if I play the devil, will tell you that they need money because they're doing roads, which never used to happen. Now they need more of that money. Even in your place, you're saying all these roads are national government roads. How will you take all the money from the government and expect you to perform?
But of course they will have money for their roads, because roads is a shared facility.
Right.
So we are saying that let them have money for what the Constitution says they should have money for. So that they can do that. And the counties can also have money. In actual fact, many of the counties, as they budget, they're not budgeting for all their functions because they can't afford from the 15 or 20%. But I'm saying that this experiment of devolution, development is beginning to go to places where it never went.
That's true.
And therefore, more funding should incrementally come to these counties so that they can do more of that work, particularly so that they partner with the national government for purposes of getting our country to the second level, the middle economy.
The government has not devolved 40% of its functions to the counties. Why should they therefore give 40% of the revenue?
No, in actual fact, according to the Schedule 4, which says the functions, the functions of the county governments, if we stick to that schedule, are like 50%.
They're like 50%.
They consume about 50% of the budget.
And they are the services.
Even though the functions are few, they're only 14 or so, and national government has 45.
But some of them are 14, A, B, C, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. And then they are like agriculture, they are health, they are the biggies.
Right. Okay. Final question. We'll comment on the matter of which is about to become law. The county development boards and the proposal to have them chaired by the senators and you to be the vice chairpersons. What is your perspective on that?
I think that law is unconstitutional. There is separation of powers. Senators make laws. They do oversight. You can't, how would you do oversight if you are the chair of unrolling the development things that should happen? How would you question?
They're saying that it's not going to be the executive board. It is going to be a forum where all these ideas from the MCAs, or from the county government, from the MPs who are handling CDFs, you're handling other funds, to come together and share how you're going to spread out development.
There is that forum. There is that forum already under the CDF law, where the MPs bring what they do, the counties bring what they do, the national government brings what they do, and in actual fact, even NGOs can be asked to say what they do in a particular county. So that forum exists. So this is duplication, unnecessary duplication. The basis of the budget usually is public hearings. That is, the citizens are able to say that this is what we need on the basis of the county integrated development fund, county development. There's that document about what we are supposed to do 5 years and so on.
Yes, development plan.
Yes. So when the people have said that this is what we want to do, now when you have these political people again sitting together and saying that we can change this and we can do that and we can do that, you again will have challenge, because people would say, we said what should be done.
Where is the sovereignty of the people?
Where is the sovereignty?
What's your relationship with the county commission?
We work very well.
There was one said the other day, they do not recognize county commissioners. Are not in the constitution.
I have worked very well with my previous county commissioner. I have now a lady county commissioner, and I intend to work very well with her, because I believe that the county government and the national government should work together to deliver services to the people. And I know that they have their functions. I need those functions in Makueni. I have, my functions. I need those functions to happen in Makueni. Even the other actors like NGOs, we also need to work with them well, to partner with them, so that they can also supply development. Even people's initiatives, faith-based institutions. So I don't belong to the school of I don't want to work with the national government.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Professor Kibudha Kibwana, the governor for Makueni. We took a lot more than Makueni, because he's a man of many things and a professional at that. Thank you for watching, and thank you, Prof, for coming along.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be with you and here.
Thank you.